Come on in, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Cheryl Krosman, and I'll be your host today. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes here to let everybody get into the webinar room and take care of our stragglers. So we will start in 2 minutes at exactly 10:01 a.m. Pacific time. So grab your coffee or your water and sit back and relax. We have some amazing speakers for you guys today and a great wealth of information that I know that you guys are going to be very, very happy with. So give us about a minute and we'll get started. Okay, perfect. It looks like everybody's in the webinar room now. Again, for those of you who weren't here just a second ago, my name is Cheryl Krosman. I'm with SAMSoNQ. And I'll be your host for the webinar today, but I'm certainly not the expert. But we do have two experts with us today that I know that you're really going to enjoy hearing from. One of them is Susan Lehman. She's a distinguished program management leader and a passionate advocate for survivor rights. She has quite a resume, and we're so honored to have her at File on Q. She's based in Portland, Oregon, and she serves as our program manager for the SAMS program. She began at Portland, Oregon, the Police Bureau, where she specialized in sexual assault response and victim advocacy, and she has served on the Oregon State SANE Certification Committee, where she championed landmark legislation, including Melissa's Law, that transformed how Oregon processes sexual assault kits and ensured statewide transparency and accountability. She also spearheaded efforts to eliminate Portland's rape backlog kit, implementing systemic reforms and technology solutions that restored trust and expedited justice for survivors. So she'll be demonstrating a lot of things for us today, and she'll be available to answer questions as we go along. Our other guest today is Brian Tracy, and he's had 14 years of law enforcement experience, including service as a New Hampshire state trooper and a canine handler. Throughout his career, he worked in multiple investigative units and handled a wide range of complex cases. His investigative experience includes domestic violence, sexual assault, child exploitation, and child pornography investigations, narcotics enforcement, and numerous other criminal cases. He will also be available for questions as we go. So you'll see that there is a space for you to put in questions. Anytime you have a question during the webinar, you don't have to wait for a break or anything like that. Just go ahead and type your question in there, and we can address them privately in the question box, and most likely we'll address them with our experts here. So they'll be stopping along the way and asking if there are any questions, and I'll go ahead and feed those questions to them so that we can get all of your questions answered today. There is no question too small. Please feel free to use that as we go along today. All righty there. Okay, so everybody's ready. Again, thanks for being here today. This is going to be an amazing situation. I did want to acknowledge one other person that you'll see on the screen, who is Amanda Lotta. Amanda is our marketing person here at File on Q, and she does an amazing job of putting together these free webinars for you guys. And make sure that you have access to all the experts that you need to make your job easier and to make you better at your job so that your department recognizes you. So anytime you get an email from Amanda at File on Q, make sure you open that because it's definitely going to be something very valuable. All right, Susan, I'm going to hand the webinar over to you now so that you can start giving these people some information. Again, Q&A box is open all the time. No question too small. Go ahead and put those questions in there as they come along, and then that way we can address them. Susan, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. I do kind of want this webinar and demonstration to be casual. I want you to be able to ask questions when they come up. We want to make sure that we get all your questions answered. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to dive right in because I know your time is valuable. So I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. This is the opening dashboard for our product, SAMSonQ. SAMSonQ is a case management dashboard or case management database, excuse me, made to be used by sexual assault units, child abuse units. It does a myriad of reporting, and it's all user-based. You fill in the drop-down menus, you do you give users roles and rights. So on this main dashboard here, let's just take a look at this. On the left-hand side, we have the menu starting with a list of dashboards that come preset in your system, then incidents. You can adjust your notification settings within the system configuration. That's where you, as the user, put in values into the drop-down menus and change titles of fields. And then administration is where you give people's rights and roles into the system. SAMSonQ is role-based, so everybody sees only what you want them to see. And within roles, individual users can have increased permissions or restricted permissions. Up in the upper right-hand corner here, we have the notification bell. If you had notifications pending, they would be here. You can set their the notifications you receive. We can go to light to dark mode, and then of course your log off setting. So on the main dashboard here, we show you the most important information, the number of cases you have in the system by year. Bottom left-hand corner is cases opened by investigator. In the center bottom, you will see cases pending in the DA's office. Now you set the threshold here. My system right now is set for 60 days. So when a case has been sent over to the DA's office, if it is there 61 days, the block turns red. Otherwise, it stays green, showing that it's within the time frame. Then in the bottom right here are kits awaiting the lab and their funding source. And at the top right is just a small list of the incidents that are in the system. So let's go right to the incident page. Normally, for most agencies, cases are going to come in via the RMS. We set parameters on what cases come in. Your agency decides if it's just adult sex crimes, if it's all sex crimes, if you're going to bring in your peepers, creepers, and exposers. So that will all come in through your RMS, but just in case one doesn't, in the upper right-hand corner, you have a create case button here. So we list the cases in the center of the screen here, and then we also have a little incident map. So each of these balloons denote a case, and then if there's a circle, there's more cases within that. And that's helpful if you are showing a pattern of cases along a certain corridor in your city. So we're going to look at our demo case here. The nice thing about SAMS is we have this little case summary. The system will automatically generate a summary given the information that you put in the system. And as we go through the system, I'm going to denote what items should fall in automatically from your RMS and which ones will require your input. SAMS is segmented into 5 different tabs: the case tab, persons, document, notes, and timing. Any of these can be shut off. If you don't want to do time tracking, you just shut it off and it doesn't appear to your users. Same with documents and notes. So under the case page, we have it set into 6 distinct fields. So let's start with case information. About 90% of this is going to come over from your RMS, the case number, incident, latitude and longitude, date of occurrence, offense code. The only thing you'll need to add here is what unit you're going to assign this to. And if that is already in your RMS, that will come over. But for many agencies, the unit is established after the case is already dropped into SAMS. We have cross-reference cases and this priority box, which of course is user defined. You can set those priorities how you'd like, and they come out onto a dashboard. Let's look at the elements of the crime. I'm going to turn this over to our expert, Brian, to go through this portion.
Yeah, so when you're looking at the elements of the crime, this is where we start to differentiate from a standard RMS. Standard RMSs won't have all this information. These are specific details pertaining to the assaults that took place. So as you're looking at it, you have, number of perpetrators, what's the relationship to the suspect? If it was a family member, what's that relationship? What violence was used? Uh, Location type. And then you're going through, was it a gang assault? Did it happen on a university campus? And if it did, if you do check that box, you then can go over to the list of gangs, list of colleges. And just to note, this is all configurable to your city, your agency. So obviously everyone's colleges are going to be different, gangs are going to be different. So you have the ability to change fields, add fields. And then when you go down to drugs and alcohol, so there's two ways of doing this. Some agencies will do anytime alcohol was consumed, whether it was by the survivor or it was generated from the perpetrator. Some agencies will just do only if the perpetrator offender provided alcohol or drugs that were used during the incident. But we have that list there. Then as you go further down, you can include the weapons that were used, multiple choices as well. And then we go down into social media, right? Did they have a conversation on Tinder or Facebook? How was there any, pre-conversations before the meeting happened? And we go from there. As we continue on, we'll look at working groups and task force. So if your agency does have a task force, was that case handed over to them? And then what did the task force do with it? Did they, send for advanced testing? Was it closed? Again, all this is configurable so you can add in the sections that you want. Go a little bit further down. Now we're looking at the investigation. Who was the assigned investigator? When was it assigned? And then this is a big piece for agencies. So, what happened with the case? If it was suspended, why was it suspended? Because obviously, like 60 suspended cases is not a great look for an agency, but those numbers are skewed, right? But you could say, hey, it was suspended because 20 of them, the victims didn't want to cooperate. 5 of them, the victims are deceased. Well, those numbers drastically change. So you want to be able to detail that information. And then what activities happened during the investigation? So you can go into detail. Were search warrants completed, forensic things on computers or witness interviews, all those different things you can add so you can start to build what happened during the investigation. And then did the case go to the DA's office? If it did, when did it go there? And we go further down, we have last two sections, VICAP, right? Pretty standard. So if it was VICAP eligible, you put the case number and the date that it was entered into VICAP. And then last piece is district attorney, or if it's your AG's office or your state prosecutor's office, who was assigned, what advocate was assigned, what was the number that was generated, and then what decision did they make, and what was the reason for that decision if it was rejected. So now we're going to start building clarity to those cases, and you can start to have context as to, why did cases move forward and why did other cases not move forward. Susan, back over to you.
Yeah, let's move on to the persons tab. SAMs can hold multiple victims, multiple suspects, and witnesses. Any person that's involved in this case can be added to SAMs. So let's first take a look at the victim. Of course, this comes over from your RMS. Under the persons involved general tab, most of this will come over from your RMS. It's basically the name, date of birth, physical description, driver's license, race, the things that won't, maybe tribal affiliation or ethnicity, depending on what your RMS is capturing. Under contact, this information all comes over from your RMS, address, city, state, What doesn't is if the person is currently in a care facility, you can document that care facility and the type of domicile. Are they in supportive housing? Are they in a residence of their own? That way, if you find that you have a certain care facility or foster home that is showing up repeatedly, you can run a report and have a discussion with the licensing agency about that. Then we have health and safety. We have disability and mental health disorders. The descriptions are free-form fields. And is the victim deceased? And what date was the victim determined deceased? The reason we use determined deceased is because if you're financing some of your sexual assault kits or investigations through grants, you need to have the date you determined it's deceased versus when the actual date of death. And then when was the victim contacted? When were they located? When did you attempt to contact them? And what was that method of first contact? Was it in person or over the phone? And are they participating in the investigation? And when they agree to participate in the investigation, what's that date? Even if later on they decide not to go forward, you can document that at some point the victim or survivor decided to go forward. And then from there, we have an advocate tab. So whether you're using embedded advocates or nonprofit advocates, you can all share this one system. Because we're role-based, if you were using nonprofit advocates, you would only allow them to see the victim information along with the advocate tab. So advocates have the ability to manage their own cases that aren't linked to investigation. Sometimes advocacy takes a little longer than the investigation process. So we allow advocates to close their case independent of the investigation. So we have an assigned advocate, the date they were assigned, they can close their own case. We have additional contacts, which might be a mother of a homeless survivor that doesn't have a phone, social service contacts. Did you provide a confidentiality letter? Are they using crime victims compensation? Are they using a victims' rights law center? And if so, who is that attorney? So we make sure that the attorney is aware of any meetings going on. And then the notes section. This is where the advocate would document their contact with the investigator or the victim or even the prosecutor about what's going on in this case. So when the investigator has a question about where, what the victim needs, he can just go to this note section and find out. And of course, if your advocates are VOCA funded and that's not something that's allowed, you just simply lock detectives out of this section. We also track victimology for grant reporting, resources and services, not only for grant reporting, but maybe you want to report back out to the people that provide these services for you. So you can say, last year, the YMCA provided, 65 self-defense classes to 65 survivors. And then we have a document section, which you might upload your release of information form. From there, we tie all the evidence back to the victim. It starts with the kit. And so let's look at that quickly. Under kit information is basically your funding source, property receipt number, date it was inventoried, state crime lab number, date and time of the exam, the date of seizure. And then if you're working off a federal grant, like a SAMSOnQ grant, we do document if it's a historical kit, why it wasn't tested several years ago, why isn't this kit being tested now, and what was the date you determined that it wasn't eligible for testing. Maybe it was beyond the statute of limitations, or it's anonymous, or in Oregon we have Melissa's Law. So from there we can list other property, and this section can come over from your property evidence system or your RMS. to fill in the other property that was collected during this case and might be eligible for testing. We log in any and all DNA profiles that are uploaded to CODIS and what their status is in CODIS, and if we get a hit, and what that hit looks like. Is it a match to the offender? Is it a case-to-case match? And then sometimes profiles get removed from CODIS, so we document that as well. You can also document if you release the kit to another agency, along with who is authorizing the destruction of the kit. And if your state has a legislative timeline to destruction, we set that for you. So if you try to dispose of a kit before that deadline is missed, it will bring up a warning. Now we'll take a quick look at the lab information. We do track when the kit was tested, so we can pull that out on a report and look at all the kits that might have fallen through the cracks. And under forensic testing, we keep track of all the test types: biology, DNA, blood alcohol, toxicology, genealogy. We put the test type in, the finding for that, and then we upload the lab report for that. So that's a very quick look on how we handle victims in this system. And then I'll turn it over to Brian to talk about the suspects. Again, I'll just interrupt real quick here, Brian,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you don't
go
have to
ahead.
go through
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the persons involved, the general contact, health and safety, and the only thing different is the suspect information, where we document whether they're currently in a jail facility and what's their estimated date of release. Do they have a property crime or domestic violence history? Are they currently a registered sex offender? And of course, their SID and FBI numbers.
Yeah.
If I can interject really quickly, I do have a couple of questions, and I think one of them was addressed a couple of times, but Ricky in Oklahoma and Dale from Illinois both are, I think Ricky says he's in Oklahoma and will use our ODI system. Can we just get the sexual assault software? And then Dale, I think, has a similar question. And he says, does the platform integrate with any RMS?
Yes, it does integrate with any RMS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Nick from Atlanta, it says, does the platform work for a case with multiple victims or suspects?
Yes, that's a very good question. So normally by FBI standards, every victim should have their own case number, but in reality, sometimes that doesn't occur. So you can have multiple victims and multiple suspects per case.
Okay. And then can I just ask can I bring two more in right now, or am I over?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so Trevor from New Jersey says, do you select drugs, alcohol if the victim was already intoxicated when the suspect approached them?
So that depends on your agency's rule. That's a business rule. In areas like Las Vegas or New Orleans, where they have a lot of self-intoxicated individuals, they have gangs of people, of course, that prey on those individuals. So they determine that, yes, they're going to mark that if indeed the victim was self-intoxicated. Other agencies that may not have the high vacation or tourist population, they might decide that no, we're only going to check that box if the suspect supplied or encouraged the consumption of alcohol. And of course, when we train at your agency, we go through the system with your command staff so that everybody is on the same page. And then when we train the rules that your agency has decided on.
Okay. And then one more right quick. Amy from Texas says, what if the victim and suspect are both college students? Do you select campus assault?
So generally, you only select campus assault if the attack itself occurred on college-owned property, either the campus or dormitory, some sort of housing, not just if they're college students.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have for now. I see somebody has their hand raised. So, Aaron, if you can just use the question box over there and put your question in there, and then I'll bring it up when in the next section here. So, Brian, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah. No worries.
Let me do prosecution real
Yeah.
quick, Brian, and get that out of the way. So we do track the case all the way through the prosecution. So did you get a true bill? Was it felony or misdemeanor? And the charges. So they're here so you can see all the charges that were given by the district attorney's office and then what the disposition of those charges were, along with prosecution details. Um, was it a conviction by trial? Was it dismissed? Was it a plea deal? And the sentence type, prison, the number of months, probation, the number of months, and then all the way through the appellate court decision. So Brian's going to go give us a detailed tour into the incident details page.
Yeah, and so when you look at this section, I think this is what truly differentiates us from just a standard RMS. Most of the details you're going to see here, you won't find in RMS system. So there's two things that come to mind for me. As an investigator and officer, I'm gonna have to remember to find out all these details and then note them in the actual report because there won't be fields to fill out like you're seeing right here in SAMSOnQ. And so with that, those are then hard to track because if it's just in the general report, it's very hard to track, well, how many sex assaults involved, this specific detail, which you can now search in our system. So what you're seeing here is the first section's vehicle, right? So vehicle make, vehicle model, vehicle color, plate, type. Was it a car for hire, like an Uber or Lyft? You'll see a lot of that in your RMS section, but in the body section, this is where we're going to go a lot deeper because the types of crimes we're tracking. During these types of traumatic experiences, survivors are going to, their senses are going to be heightened. So they might remember a certain smell or description or something out of the ordinary that we want to try to gather during that process. And so we can note those because at the end of the day, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's anywhere between 50 to 60% of offenders are repeat offenders. So trying to bridge the gap of multiple incidents that involve the same offender, these details are so important. So what you're seeing here is, did they have any piercings, tattoos, what hairstyle, what hair color, eye color, any birthmarks, other characteristics, facial hair, body odor, scars, genital description, dominant hand, and then miscellaneous descriptions like to include verbiage or clothing. All these details are so important, and a lot of these aren't asked in the standard RMS. So if you're not a good investigator or you don't have the experience yet, you won't ask these questions. But if you had a SAMSoNQ platform, you're almost gonna be remembered, well, hey, I didn't ask that question. I should probably bring that up. I should find out if the survivor remembers anything about the person's general description and note that because like I said before, most people aren't just doing this one time, they're doing it multiple times. So like let's try to put a stop to that as soon as possible. And this is going to help do that. If I go a little further down to the behavior, this is we're going to get the complete picture of that suspect. So what was the activity they were doing before? What was the action they were doing? And then what device were they doing it on? So were they filming? What type of device was it? What was the activity before? Because a lot of times those suspects, they have the same pattern, right? They have the same fetishes. So if we can start to nail that down, we might be able to say, hey, these two cases line up. This might be the same suspect. And you could have multiple suspects. They could be unknown. You can still gather all this information. If you don't have a name, right, Susan, it'd be like suspect one and suspect two.
I have a couple of questions, I think, Brian, for you.
Yeah.
So Kasha wants to know, is there a section for scene of crime evidence custodians as well in the app?
Susan, do you have that?
We don't add I mean,
So
yes and
we,
no. We don't purposely have it in our demonstration system, but on that evidence page we were looking at earlier, any of those fields can be relabeled and that information put in. That's the beauty about this system is just because we want to track activity doesn't mean you want to track activity. Maybe there's something more important that you would like to track. We just change the label of this and then change the values in the drop-down menu.
so it is very easy to add multiple fields. So we could add fields that they care about to track those.
Okay, and another one, Natika is wondering, can a particular accent be entered in the thing you were just talking about?
Oh, yeah, like tracking different if they have a
Right.
specific accent, yeah, or language accent, you could add that as well, which is actually a great point.
Okay. And then let's see. Yosef is asking, do multiple victims go under one SAMSOnQ case?
Generally, SAMSOnQ is built by case number. So if you have one case number with multiple victims, you would have just one case in SAMS. If your multiple victims have subsequent case numbers, then they would all have a different case in SAMS and be cross-referenced to the system.
Okay. And then let's see. Meredith wants to know, how do we document if the victim is blind or deaf and may need an interpreter?
Yes. So on the victim page, there is a place for translation or interpreter, and there is an option in there for sign language and Braille.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all. I do have another question, but I think that one I think is better for the end that Melissa is asking. So um, let's go to your next section and then we'll address a couple more.
I think it's also important to understand that SAMSOnQ was built by law enforcement for law enforcement. And each of the things that have been added to SAMS since its inception were added to solve a problem,
Yeah.
right? A case came up that we couldn't quite connect all the dots with. So we put a field in, and then we were able to look for other cases with similar attributes. So we also have a documents tab. SAMS is not replacing your RMS, but sometimes you have a release of information or a particular document that's not only going in your RMS, but if your system is walled off between advocate and detectives, sometimes you want those documents right here. So everybody can see it because the advocate wouldn't have access to your RMS. We also have a notes field, which is also used again when your system is walled off from advocates to detectives, so they can put notes in here, and there's time tracking. Originally, Austin PD asked to put time tracking in because they wanted to be able to go to city council during the budget and determine, sexual assault cases usually take a lot longer to work than other cases. So they use that for budgeting information.
And I think one other thing to note here, Susan, is if you're in law enforcement, one size doesn't fit all. And so that's what I really like about our platform is what, my former agency might care about, another agency doesn't care about. So that's why it's great that you can add fields or delete fields or add sections or delete sections based on what you care about and what's going to help you solve those cases.
Yeah, that's right. So let me take a quick tour of the configuration page. It's our configuration menu. It's separated by page. So if we just go into the incident page and say we want to add a new bar or tavern, we come in here, we hit the create. And I'm just going to type it new, set it as active, and it immediately is available to every user on the system that quick. You don't need your IT, you don't need FileOnQ to do that, you do it. Same with adding victims and permissions. You do that, you control that. No making a help desk ticket. It's all within your control. Let me just, do I have any questions before I go on to show a dashboard real quick?
So Melissa is asking, she said today's the first information she's receiving about SAMS. Can you tell me more about the creation of the program, which I think you've addressed a little bit, but how many states are currently using SAMS and what kind of feedback are you getting from those users?
So SAMS was originally developed by the Portland Police Bureau under their Saki grant. And as we started using it, we started adding more and more pieces to it. While SAMS was under the Portland Police Bureau, they gave the system away to any law enforcement agency that wished to have it. Most agencies that got the system from Portland were under a Saki grant, and some have just use it for the duration of the grant because it does do automatic grant reporting. So when you get that 13 or 17 page from the Department of Justice, SAMS does that calculation for you and produces a report. So you just have to fill in the numbers. Currently, one of our largest users is New Orleans PD, and users seem to be, happy with it because it is so configurable. And you can pull in information from a LIMS system, from your RMS, from your CAD, all that. We try to bring in as much information as possible. I detest double entry. So anything we can do to alleviate that, we do. But like Brian was saying, some of the details of the sexual assault are in the narrative, and there's not a place for those in the RMS. There's not a place to say that your suspect smelled like cigarettes or beer. There's not a place to talk about a unique genital malformation. So we do that in here.
And then what's nice about it is you have the ability to search that. So you can, hey, how many cases involved a suspect that smelled like cigarettes and was driving a black Jeep Grand Cherokee and something else. So now you're building out, hey, there's 3 cases that align. All right, let's look because those 2 were unknown suspects, but we finally figured out one of the suspects, so that person might be attached to those other cases. Now we can start to, look at those together.
Yeah. And Portland had a case where a gentleman had a subdermal implant in his penis. We were able to connect those cases together. We were able to connect cases where the only thing that the case had in common was the suspect's picture. But he always took the victims to a marijuana dispensary. And so we were able to run searches on the dashboards for that. So let me just show you real quick a few of the dashboards. One of them is this elements of the crime, where you can just look immediately at, the violence used, the location type, gangs or colleges. And then of course, all that data is thrown out here to this main dashboard. Same with evidence. We track it all in one place. So you don't have to go searching. We have these unique filter builders on the bottom of all our dashboards. So you can decide exactly what you're looking for. Maybe you only want to look at adult sex crimes. And you want the funding type to be general fund. It immediately shifts. All these dashboards are also exportable to Excel. So if you're more comfortable in Excel, you can just push it right out there and do whatever manipulation of the data you want. So every field ultimately winds up in a dashboard, and we have what we call exception dashboards or compliance dashboards. So if your agency has a certain set of requirements that investigators have to meet, we put in that compliance dashboard. So if cases go over those thresholds, command staff and supervisors would know. Any other questions, Cheryl?
Yes, I have a couple of them here. So Chad from Washington says, how are unknown suspects put into SAMSOnQ? How's it put into the system?
So again, that's a business decision. Some agencies put in the last name of unknown. So the last name might be unknown, but maybe his first name is Jeff. So you put in the first name is Jeff. Or he's got a nickname like T-Rob or Pitbull, but it's unknown. And then we have the AKA. Some agencies decide to put in just unidentified. So you determine whatever word you want to use in the last name, and that's how they're put in. Or suspect 1, suspect 2, suspect 3.
Okay.
I've seen tracking by numbers as well. Like she said,
Yes.
suspect 1, 2, 3, and then you go from there.
Excellent. Okay. I think, okay, that's it for right now. Looks like
Okay.
somebody's typing one, but you guys go ahead and we'll catch up on it.
Well, I just want to say this is really a high overview of the system, and if you want a very detailed configured demonstration, reach out to us and we will curio a demonstration just for your agency.
Yeah, I think it's important just to note, like we said before, right? There's a lot that we can do with this platform, and it's nice to show that we are configurable and we can change things to make it work for your agency. So I think that's what's important. If you didn't see something that you would want in there, well, that's a conversation we can have. We can certainly add that in. But
Oh, Ryan froze on us. So somebody is asking, I didn't see it there, but it may have gone past me, but it's Chuck is asking, why does it say perceived disability mental health?
Because unless you're going to
dashboard.
document that with a medical report, um, it's listed as perceived.
Got it. Okay.
Are you back, Brian?
You
I'm
back?
sorry. I think I lost you guys. Sorry about that.
No worries.
No. Carry on, Susan.
Is there anything else we can answer for anybody? I
That's
think it,
Those are all the questions that I have on my dashboard here. So you guys are still welcome to put in as many questions as you need to.
also, it's important to realize that SAMSOnQ can be used regionally. So originally, when Portland had it, it was made to just go inside a sexual assault unit. But you can also be used regionally because suspects don't look at the county line and decide they're not going to cross it. So, and then the cost can be shared with multiple agencies. I will say that FileOnQ does have the small agency initiative, so we have better pricing for the small under 40 agencies. So that's always helpful.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. And I think the goal today was just to get you guys to see what is out there, see what we can do, and then hopefully, if you want to dive deeper into the demonstration or into the platform, we can set up a more personalized demonstration for you.
Excellent. Thank you both for sharing the time with us today. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before I wrap up here, Susan and Brian?
I think we've hit all the points.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, I want to thank you guys so much for being with us today. I just put up a little information sheet on the next webinar that we will be doing on Wednesday, April 29th. And this is Track on Q, which works with SAMSoNQ. And it allows you to track your kits through the system and take care of a lot of different things that can really make you a hero within your own organization. So please make sure that you sign up for that. There's a QR code. If you can just grab your phone and take a picture of that and go ahead and sign up. Check back with us regularly because we always have different types of free webinars that will help you do your job better. Again, help you get recognized within your own department. I want to thank Susan and Brian again today, and mostly Amanda Lotta for setting up these sessions, gathering all of our experts together, and giving this resource to you guys. So thanks for joining us. I genuinely appreciate it, and we appreciate you at FileOnQ. Look for your follow-up email from Amanda. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and send questions through that and request a demo so that we can get you guys rolling. Until next time, this is Cheryl Crosman with FileOnQ, and you guys have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.